y'all probably can't hear me. Maybe that's better, because that was way too loud. My bad. Should I start this over? No, I won't start it over. But I've been digging some deep digging into my genealogy, and I found some things that were astonishing and to help me put history together for the Niji, for the American Indian, and the indigenous people who don't know that they are indigenous because they believe that they are slaves. You hear Donald Trump throwing this word out there now, slaves, babies of slaves. You hear this word so often nowadays. This used to be one of those words where it was like taboo. Like, you know what I mean? I don't identify as that anymore because I've done my genealogy, which is why I did my genealogy. There were so many people saying, okay, we came from Africa, we came from here. People were just all over the place. So I wanted to connect with my true people and see where we actually come from. So it led me into the world of genealogy and ancestry. And it goes pretty deep. Whenever you do your genealogy, so I'm all for everybody like taking that leap of faith and just doing it. But we're gonna get into it, guys. I'm just giving y'all a second to get in here, share. If you see this, it's free to share. I'm providing content that will help us break the slavery mindset and understand the secret behind what the government did. I feel like if people understand the secret, they would stop getting played all the time and falling for every trap, falling for all the propaganda. You gotta know who we are dealing with here. Dang, I don't have that saved. I don't know my password. Don't y'all hate it when you don't remember your password and shit? Let me just reset my password, guys, because I want to show y'all something. Oh, you know what? That is not my password. Because I think it's very, very important. TikTok, what's up? I think it's very, very important. Good morning. How are you? I'm coming, guys. I just want to get this up real quick because I think it's important. And I'll show y'all what I've been working on. Morning, everybody. Let's do this over. Let's see if this will work. Use this. Coming, y'all. I'm just trying to get my shit together real quick. Okay. Okay. Good morning, Queen. How are you? Is your practice in New York City? My practice is not in New York City. It is in New York, but more north than New York City. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from New York City. So I'm on the outskirts, like in the capital region of New York, which most people in New York would call the country of New York, but it is not in New York City. So, guys, this is what I want to get into today. So, you can see from the title, we going into something kind of deep. Oh, let me get y'all back on. I got too much going on, y'all. Too much going on. Oh shit. Okay, I got too much going on, but hopefully, y'all can hear me. Hopefully, you can hear me. All right. So, all of this stuff about Essence Festival and MPAs and African Americans and slave babies, all of this stuff has something to do with your identity, who you identify as. So people are arguing all over the internet, and I just can't fucking understand why y'all arguing with each other about who each other are instead of just doing the research and knowing who you are. I feel like if we know who the hell we are, then we wouldn't be in this battle of trying to figure out who we are and arguing with people, and because we got to know who we are first to understand what has been done to the Niji. If you don't know what a Niji is, I need you to stay with me. I need you to stay with me because you might be Niji. Niji just means my brother and my sister from Turtle Island. There's a group of people, right, who have been reclassified by the government from indigenous, autochthonous, American Indian into Negro, colored, nigga. I should probably not say that on live. Don't ban me live, but then ultimately African American because they wanted to, you know, get you a little lost about who you are. So it prompted me to do my genealogy research because nobody can tell me who the fuck I am. All right. Before, when I was in this African American identity, and most of my family still is, because they just don't know. But one thing I read that really stuck with me from one of these presidents, one of these, slave holding presidents, is that he said knowledge will forever govern ignorance. Catch up with me, catch up with me, catch up with me. And he said knowledge will forever govern ignorance. So the government is run on the fact that you're ignorant, the fact that you're not going to read, the fact that you're not going to know who you are, the fact that propaganda works on you. So I've been doing a lot of reading, so much reading so that I had to take a break from live, dealing with the loss of a close friend, and I just needed some time to really, take a break. So I failed my consistency challenge for the second time. One thing you're going to learn about Dr. Sean is I will fail sometimes, but damn it, I'm going to get back up and try it again. So I had to try this again. I can't just quit. Sometimes you got to listen to yourself, though. You must listen to yourself. So what the hell am I talking about? I'm talking about, first, we're going to just take a little introduction into genealogy. Right? Into genealogy. So let's pull up this first screen here. So as you can see from the screen, I don't know if it's going to let me slide over. This is, in order to do your genealogy, you got to go to ancestry.com, and then, let's do this way, vertically. I'm just trying to switch my tree up a little bit. I don't like that way. Oh man, hold on. I don't like this way either. Let's go to the fan. What I'm trying to show you is the tree. This is a better version of the tree. All those other ways is how you can put your tree together. But this is basically what genealogy does, and what it did for me. It helped me to see who created me, all the people connected to my tribe, so that I don't ever like feel like I'm not connected. All right. So I'm just gonna show y'all 7 generations back. You see all these people that it took to create one person. Now, out of all of these people, none of them are coming from Africa on my tree. Because I'm thinking, okay, before I did all this research on myself, and if you connected to me, this research is also for you. I thought I was from Africa. And I kept hearing the chief say, we from America. We didn't come over here on no boat. They lied. So I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I did the research. I say, okay, if we didn't come here that way, then I should be able to find this. So this is my actual tree. You'll see my name here in the middle. And then when you do your genealogy, and I have fallen in love with genealogy, guys. I have fallen in love with just putting this puzzle together because it's so exciting. I have found new family members. I'm connected with people I've never met before on certain sides of my family. And it's just like we are the lost tribe. Like, when you don't know who you are, you don't know your people, you can become the lost tribe. So this is me in the middle here. And what you do when you do your genealogy is you go to Ancestry.com, you create a free account. Yes, you can have a paid account, which is, in my opinion, better. You're going to spend the money anyways on something that don't have nothing to do with you. But you put your name in here, your birthday, and then you just start the puzzle. You put my dad, mom. So this is 2 people. And what you'll discover about your tree is every generation you go back, it doubles. So these are your great grandparents. Every time you go back into the genealogy, it gets bigger and bigger. Now, what I discovered from my tree is none of these people came from Africa. None of them, all of their records say natural born citizen, inhabitants. It says nothing about Africa. So I kept trying to figure out where the fuck this Africa thing came from. Why they want us to be from Africa so bad? What is it? Because my people aren't from there. And I'm just showing you guys this so you can kind of understand how this genealogy works. So there's me here, then my parents here, that's 2. Then if you go back to their parents, that's 4 people. And if you go back to their parents, that's 8. That's 8 great grandparents. Then if you go back again, that's 16 great. This is my 16 great grandparents here. All of these people, my 16 great grandparents. It's crazy, right? The ones I'm highlighting, my great grandparents, right? All these people, okay? And now I'm working on my 32 great. Is it great? Hold on, I got lost. So grandparent, great grandparent, great grandparent. These are my great grandparents on this row right here, and there's 32 of them. None of them from Africa. None of them. None of these people. None of these people. And this is in the 1800s now. I'm still filling in the puzzles for this part because it can get a little tricky with the census, but filling in. And then I'll be working on my 64 great grandparents out here. Okay? And we almost to the 1700s. So I encourage everyone to do their genealogy. It is so important so that you can know who you are, and nobody can tell you who you are. But today, this is just the intro so you can see, how it is. And I will show y'all a different version of it. Let's go to the horizontal version. So as you can see from the horizontal version of this same tree, this is the same tree, but I made it different. You'll see me here, and then you can see my siblings, and then you can see their siblings too, like on the phone. And then you go to my parents, great grandparents, then my great great grandparents, then my great 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 grandparents, and then you can push these arrows and see more people, and it just keeps growing. All right. So y'all got that part. We're not gonna beat this in the head. We're gonna keep it moving. We're gonna keep it moving. But that's the tree. That is the tree. Okay. So, but this live is talking about a different beast. The black codes and despotism in America. Most people probably have never heard of that word, despotism. So, let's see what despotism is. This is despotism. If you on TikTok, then I have to just read it to you. Come on here, man. Let's go to see what despotism means. So, despotism is the exercise of absolute power, especially in a cruel and oppressive way. That's the meaning of despotism. The exercise of absolute power in a cruel and oppressive way. What does that sound like? It sounds like slavery, dictatorship, tyranny. It sounds like the government over here in America. That's what it sounds like. Despotism. So, you know me, I'm very nosy. I'm very, very nosy. I was doing some research and I kept hearing black codes, black codes. You know, you hear Jim Crow, you hear black codes. But as I'm older, I never really paid attention to these things when I was younger, like learning them. I don't even know if we learned these in school. Maybe we did. I don't think we did. But now that I'm older and we have all of this racial reclassification and a lot of things going on with who we are and essence and Africa, I just wanted to dig deep and understand what the fuck is going on, right? So, hang with me, guys. We getting somewhere here. So, I'm a reader. I'm going to go read and find some sources before I just, like, you know, before I just believe some shit, I guess I could say, right? So I said, in order for me to, so I did my genealogy, as you can see, I'm working on that daily. So all those branches, they all have kids and grandkids, and you can't see on what I just showed you, but they have, each one of those people had kids, and they got married, and they had kids, and, you know, it's a big tree. I just showed y'all the grandparents of the tree. You ain't thinking about the other people of the tree. So doing your genealogy is absolutely critical to determine if you are Niji or not. Now, if you're part of my tribe, I'm doing the research for you. Now, whether you want to wake up or not, that is on you, but I'm going to bring you the meat and the potatoes, my Niji. Now, let's get into it, because these black holes piss me the fuck off, and I can't even put it no other way. I'm like, what the hell is a black hole? Why did they make the black hole, and why the hell I keep hearing about it? Anytime I keep hearing about some shit, then I gotta go and read it. And it was a little hard for me to find the black codes for Florida, because, you know, Florida was on some other type of shit. They was on some real despotism type shit. Okay? So it was a little hard for me to find Florida's, but I did find Mississippi's. Mississippi black codes. And when I read it, it pissed me the hell off. But before we get into the black codes, I went to the Library of Congress. You can go to the Library of Congress right on your phone, right? You can go right on your phone, right? So I go to the Library of Congress because I'm always looking for historical books to prove who the hell we are and see what I can find and dig up and read. And you find so much of the lies just right in the Library of Congress. Okay? You find them in the Library of Congress. So the government think they was slick, and they like to write every damn thing down, and they made it laws where you couldn't read, you couldn't write. Who? What? Anywho, don't let me get sidetracked, y'all. Don't let me get sidetracked, because I'll get sidetracked. Let's continue this journey. So I found this book called Despotism in America. Despotism in America. And we're going to get into it. We're going to get into it. Because I feel like It's going to explain who we are, why we have this identity, and, you know, and my screen is froze. Why we have this identity, and why people feel like they came from Africa. This is going to explain it to you guys. So I read most of this beginning, the intro, but this is the book, Despotism, and we see what despotism means, right? Remember, it means when someone has absolute power or cruelty, where they practice absolute power or cruelty towards other people. Cruelty, like what you see in the horror movie Cruelty. You know what I'm saying? So, cruelty basically in America. That's what this book is called. An inquiry into the nature and results of the slave holding system in the United States, by the author of Archie Moore. This was from Boston in 1840. See, me, I'm going to go back on their ass, because my grandparents was living here and before here, and they was inhabitants. They was not from Africa. As you can see, I did the research. Right? So, despotism in America. Let's get into it. Now, this book was crazy as hell. It's crazy as hell. I cannot even read it from here. So, we're going to keep going. And you can see what it's talking about. Let's get a little closer so I can freaking read. I don't think I'm going to read all of this intro, because the intro is really long. It is important to understand what's in the intro to understand what I'm going to talk about next. But my whole live is not going to be about this book, because it would take us a long time to get through this book, right? And the introduction is super long, but I'm going to try to find you what one of y'all presidents said about ending slavery in America. Let me see if I can find it. I probably can't find it, but you see how long this is? This is just the intro. But we're not going to read the intro. Okay. Okay, so on this page, I think this is what I'm looking for. I'm going to read it to you. Because reading, and to be a leader, you got to be a reader, right? So we got to do some reading if we want to unlock these generational curses, okay? The Hood to Hood podcast is not all about just quick, 3-minute, short attention span shit. We got to really dig into this stuff to know what's going on, to know what the system has done. So it says, I'm going to start on the second paragraph. When the Jeffersonian aristocrats of the South first began to preach the doctrines of democracy, because Jefferson was in the South, y'all president, Thomas Jefferson. It was in terms like these that they were greeted by the northern oligarchs. Bad men, wicked, turbulent, seditious, fanatical, contrivers of mischief. What mean ye? What do ye desire? Would you uproot society from its foundation? Would you abolish religion? Would you overturn morality? Would you do away with government? Would you dissolve all ties? Would you put an end to the established order and rightful property of things? That's what Jefferson was asking them, because in this book, the North and the South were fighting. You heard of the Civil War, because the North were loyalists, the South are the patriots. The North wanted to stay loyal to the crown, you know, Europe sent them over here, the Pope sent them over here to seize all of our land. Yeah, this is in the Papal Bull from 1300s, 1303 I think it is. Yes, the Pope. But we ain't got time to talk about that today. Go to the last live and you'll know what I'm talking about. You have to kind of go there to catch up. So they were fighting the Civil War, and the people in the North were like, we need to end the cruelty, the despotism, because it's better ways to handle the people who we kidnapped after the war. We need to do something better with them. They said, but before we do that, we have to see if what they're doing in the South is better than what we're doing in the North. So we need to do a little research on this experiment that they got going, because slavery was literally an experiment that they were doing on us. I know. I read it. I was like, what the fuck? Anywho, it was an experiment. So this is Jefferson talking to them like, why would y'all want to end this cruelty? Like, why would y'all want to do this? Like, this is the way the foundation should be. We need to stay cruel. Like, y'all want to abolish religion because they use religion and law to control the slaves. I know what you're thinking. I already thought what you thought. What you thinking right now, already been thought. Okay? So he said, would you uproot society from its foundation? Would you abolish religion? Would you overturn morality? Would you do away with government? Would you dissolve all ties? Would you put an end to the established order and rightful property of things? What do you seek to elevate the most ignorant and abandoned of society to level with us? Their betters and natural superiors? Would you deprive us of that power and authority which God has seen fit to entrust to us? This is what these fools were saying about unaliving people and having slaves and coming over here and seizing land. And y'all, listen, shit gets deep. This is the president talking to them now. One of y'all presidents. Yeah. The president was saying this. So he would go out. They said it in the beginning of this. I can't read all the pages because we don't have time to read all the pages. But in the beginning of this, it was saying that the presidents were like hypocrites. They would go out and speak to the aristocrats, the privileged class, which is the white people, and they put anybody else who wasn't in the privileged class as like poor people. No matter if they owned the land, no matter if they took the land, no matter if they stole the land and reclassified them, they considered them poor people. But he would go and speak these public speeches, but go back home and have slaves at home, enslaved people. The presidents, all the presidents were holders of enslaved people. The same people who was making the laws, this amendment, that amendment. Yeah. How the fuck we listening to them? You think they gonna tell you something right? Come on, man. Like, we gotta wake up. We gotta wake up, guys. We gotta wake up. So, what else did he say? He said, what do you seek to elevate the most ignorant and abandoned of society to level with us? They're better and natural superiors. He called them our better and natural superiors. What? Last time I checked, we was good at everything. Basketball, football, singing, track, art, inventing shit, everything. The melanin, like, but this is what they was saying back then, 1800. They was like, what are you talking about? We better than them. Writing it down and shit like we better than them. And God told us we was better than them. What? I know I keep stopping because I be getting sidetracked when I be reading this shit, man. When y'all read history, these people is ghetto and psycho. Yeah, I said it. Ghetto and psycho as hell. Okay? And this is who people around here tell me, the president, what? I don't give them no respect. President, I don't give none of them no respect. For what? You don't talk to people like that? What kind of psycho ass race of people who related to this president think like this? That you somebody better and natural superior. Okay, let's move on before I get deep into being pissed off already. And I ain't even got into my point yet. Would you deprive us of that power and authority which God has seen fit to entrust us, which is our natural right, and which we exercise so much as to honor and the benefit of those who we rule? Because he was mad that they was trying to get rid of despotism. He was mad, like, what? This country was built on us being evil. And then he said, yes, and you talk of guillotines too. You dare to denounce us as tyrants. You are organizing a conspiracy for a general insurrection, and for the slaughter and destruction of all good men. Out upon ye, ye Robespierres, ye Dantons, ye bloodthirsty knaves, Democrats full sight, Jacobins, atheists, murderers, villains. Why scatter seed that will presently germinate, soon or later will ripen into a harvest of desolation and blood? So they preach and so they prayed it from pulpits and the press. Yes, and they passed laws too. There was the alien law, whereby all dangerous foreigners were to be excluded from the country, and there was the sedition law, intended to gag the press and the subject, though, and to subject those who spoke disrespectfully of the powers that were, to the penalty of fine and imprisonment. All right, so I'm gonna stop there because it gets a little crazy with all the terms that they're saying in the 1800s. We're gonna move forward to the part that is the first chapter. It's called The Relation of Master and Slave. Section 1, The Origin of Slavery. Okay? Now, we got to read this for what they saying it is. You can't be reading it trying to be sympathetic with what they saying. They're telling you what the fuck it is. Like, just read it for what the hell it is. And I mean that, because we got to wake up, guys. Like, to read this stuff, it just opened my eyes like, wow, they really think that they tricked us or something, which they did trick a lot of people. Okay, so let's read this, and I need to make this a little bigger because I can't really see that good. Let's see if I can make this bigger. Yeah, that's better for me. Alright, let's go into the first chapter, The Relation of Master and Slave. Section 1, The Origin of Slavery. Now, I'm going to read this because this is important to understand what they said. Okay? It said, the relation of master and slave, like most other kinds of despotism, we know that's cruelty and complete control over somebody, has its origin in war. Okay? So you hear that? Slavery has its origin in war. Meaning, after the war, they took prisoners. Okay? Do y'all hear that? So there's a lot of war going on. When the colonists pulled up, they had to fight the American Indian. I didn't say the Native American. I said the American Indian, the melanated copper tone people. It said, by confession of its warmest defenders, slavery is at best a substitute for homicide. So let's just be honest on what the hell it is. They telling you what it is. At best, it's a substitution for homicide. So when people talking about they had slaves and all this, and they were just committing homicide. That's it. That's it. Genocide. You heard paper genocide, homicide, all of that. Democide, ethnocide, all of these things. Alright? Yeah. Savages take no prisoners, or those they do take, they first torture, then devour, meaning they ate them. Yeah. You heard that right. I ain't make this up. This is what the book's saying. So basically, settlers would pull up with orders from the Pope, from the Papal Bull, which is like a letter from the Pope, which gave them the right to go seize all the land on earth. I know it sounds crazy, but this is what the Pope said in the 1300s. So these crazy fools believe the Pope. He kept saying, go take this land. Whatever land you find is our land. It belongs to the Pope, to God, to us. Right? I know. It sounds crazy, but it is what it is. And so I got to bring the evidence, because people just think you be talking out the side of your neck, and they ain't going to go read this. They ain't going to go dig for this. They don't even know where to find this. But I told you where to go find it if you want to read it. Library of Congress, put in Despotism, and it'll pull up, and you can read the whole thing for yourself. You ain't even got to take my word for it, but I know you got to take some people to the water, because they ain't going to find the water on their own. Well, I'm here for that. So if I'm missing something, make sure you show me too. But so colonizers knew that there were people here on Turtle Island, aka Tamerica, aka the West Indies. We'll get into the maps another time, but we're talking about the old map, not the new map. The old world, not the new world. Okay? So they would pull up, and every time they pull up, they met the warriors like the Seminoles, the Choctaw, not the Choctaw, the Choctaw. Okay? The Creek, the Appalachians, and hundreds of more melanated people. So remember, slavery has its origin in war, not in you being off of a boat. And slavery is just another name for homicide. And it says the savages, the colonists, the settlers, the pilgrims, the presidents, that y'all now know as presidents, and their military forces, they take no prisoners. When they first pulled up, they would take no prisoners, especially in the South. And those that they do take, they would torture them and devour them, eat them. But when the arts of life have made some progress and the value of labor begins to be understood, it is presently discovered that to eat prisoners is not the most profitable use to which they can be put. I need you to hear this. I'm going to read that again for the people in the back. They said, but when the arts of life have made some progress and the value of labor, labor, you're going to work. Okay. The value of labor started to be understood by these savages. They said it would be more profitable for us to put these people who we have kidnapped and was normally committing homicide and eating to work. Accordingly, their lives are spared, and they are compelled to labor for the benefit of their captors, such as the origin of slavery. It was formerly a practice in America to sell as slaves such Indian prisoners. Indian prisoners. Not African American, not Native American, not black people, not Negro, not colored, but we were the Indian prisoners. Okay? Captured during the frequent wars waged with the Aboriginal inhabitants. So when you look on the Census Bureau, you'll see the word inhabitants across all your Census Bureau. You won't see Africa. You'll see no trace to Africa. Well, I don't know, because that's just my family tree. Everybody's family tree is different, but from what I'm learning, my family was here. They were inhabitants. Taken, some of them possibly, I haven't found evidence so far, but as prisoners. But the great mass of those unfortunate persons held in servitude throughout the southern states derive their origin from another source. A Virginian planter deduces the legitimacy of dominion by the following process. So they're being, they're being sarcastic. They say, they would tell the people, your great grandmother being captured by a certain African prince in a war undertaken doubtless for the mere purpose of making prisoners, was sold upon the coast of Guinea to a certain Yankee slave trader, and being transported to him to James River, was there sold to certain tobacco planter. In time, your great grandmother died, but she left children to which a part of her produced. The owner of the mother was justly entitled. From that owner, through diverse alienation and descents, the title has passed to me. And as you are descended from the woman above, too, it is quite clear how perfectly reasonable and just my empire is. Whether in point or logic morals, the above deduction is completely satisfactory is not now the question. The nature of the master's claim is stated here only as an assistance towards obtaining clearer apprehension of the relations which must grow out of it. Okay. It says, Section 2, General Idea of Slave Holding Community. Slavery then is a continuation of the state of war. You hear that? It's the continuation of the state of war. If you're on TikTok, then you can't see what I'm reading, but if you follow me on Twitch, you can see the book that I'm reading. It's called Despotism in America, the slave holding, you know, system in America, right? It says, slavery then is the continuation of the state of war. It is true that one of the combatants is subdued and bound, but the war is not terminated, okay? If I do not put the captive to death, this apparent clemency does not arrive from any goodwill towards him, and any extension on my part of hostile feelings and intentions. I spare his life merely because I expect to be able to put him to use more advantageous to myself. And if the captive, on the other hand, feigns submission, still he is only watching for the opportunity to escape my grasp, and if possible to inflict upon me evils as great as those which I have subjected to him. War is justly regarded, and with the progress of civilization, it comes every day more and more to be regarded as the very greatest of social calamities. The introduction of slavery into a community amounts to an eternal protraction of that calamity and a universal diffusion of it through the whole mass of society, and that too in most ferocious form. When a country is invaded by a hostile army within the immediate neighborhood of the camp, it becomes impossible to make any effectual resistance. However fierce the hate with which they look upon the invaders, the inhabitants within the range of their scouting parties are obliged to submit. They are made to furnish wood, forage, and provisions. They are forced to toil in the entrenchment of the camp. Their houses are liable to be ransacked and plundered, and their women to be subjected to lust of the soldiers. Upon certain emergencies, a blessed body among them will be armed, surrounded by foreign squadrons, and obliged to fight against their own countrymen. But though plundered without mercy and liable to the most frightful injuries, yet as their services are valuable and even necessary to the invaders, they must be allowed to retain the means of sustaining existence. And if under all discouragements to which they are subjected, they neglect or refuse to cultivate the fields, they must be driven to work at the point of the bayonet, which means they would put the gun to the head to make them go to work the fields that they once owned, right? Lest the invaders might suffer from their negligence and fall short of forage and provisions. Now every plantation in the slave states is to be looked upon as the seat of a little camp which overawes and keeps in subjection the surrounding peasantry. The master claims and exercises over his slaves all the rights of war above described, and others yet limited to a single neighborhood, as in the case of an invading army, but is scattered and diffused over the whole extent of the country. Nor is it temporary as in other case, but constant and perpetual. It is by taking a view like this that we are enabled to form a primary general outline of the social condition of a slave-holding community. I know that was a lot for that little section, okay? And I don't know if I'm going to continue into this because I really want to get to the black codes, because I just wanted you to see how the government views this and how they lie, and how when you say you're a slave, it's just a continuation of a war where they seize land, unalive a lot of people, and then change the narrative and made people who was indigenous, make them think that they was from Africa, when really these were invaders. They came with military, you know, and made people work on their own farms. Okay? I might read this a little bit. Let me just see how long this one is. because it get a little crazy. But this is, I mean, we got to know who we dealing with here. Section 3. The empire claimed by the master. The relation of a master and slave, as we conclude from the foregoing statements, is a relation purely of force and terror. Its only sanction is the power of the master. Its best security the fears of the slave. It bears no resemblance to anything like a social compact. Mutual interest, faith, trust, honesty, duty, affection, goodwill are not included in any form whatsoever under this relation. But let us descend somewhat into particulars and inquire more specifically what is the nature of the empire claimed by the master. That empire is most absolute and comprehensive which it is possible to imagine. The master considers his slaves as existing solely for his benefit. He has purchased and possesses them for his own sake, not for theirs. His sole object is to obtain the greatest possible profit out of them. Perhaps to attain the greatest profit, it may be necessary to feed them plentifully and clothe them well, and to allow them certain intervals of rest and other indulgences. If the master is of that opinion, he acts accordingly, but so acting he merely pursues his own advantage. If he has adopted the contrary opinion, if he imagines that he can save money by retrenchment than he can make by outlay, in that case he cuts down the allowance of rest, food, and clothing. Okay. And endeavors to supply the deficiency by stimulus of the lash. It is a mere matter of calculation either way, not a question of morals, but a mere problem of domestic economy. The slaves are not thought as sentient beings, but as machines to be kept as profitable operation. One who visits a slaveholding community for the first time, if he have any feelings of humanity and any spirit of observation, is puzzled and shocked by what appears to him a series of distressing incongruities. Men who in their relations towards those they acknowledge as fellow citizens fulfill with promptitude and exactness all the duties of benevolence and justice in their conduct towards their slaves, often seen destitute of all human sympathies. This course of action results from the very position of a master, and men naturally of the most benevolent dispositions become reconciled to it by force of custom and education. The soldier, frank, generous, warm-hearted, ready to share his last dollar with his comrade from the moment he enters the enemy's country, becomes a violent, fierce, and brutal robber who plunders whenever he has opportunity without hesitation or remorse. It is exactly so the master of slaves. His conduct towards his fellow citizens and towards his servants is regulated by rules, considerations totally distinct. In making the distinction, he is supported by the laws of the land and the dogmas of the church, upheld by the example and countenance of his friends and neighbors, and encouraged by the approbation, open and implied, of all the world. If nobody finds fault in his conduct, why should he think to change it? Why relinquish a lordship and a revenue which everybody tells him he does right to retain? So they were telling him, hey, we got laws in place so you can do this. You can continue this despotism in America because we making laws where you can do what the hell you want. Right. The value of this lordship and the amount of this revenue would be nothing at all if, instead of looking steadfastly and with a single eye to his own interest, the master should trouble himself about the well-being of his slaves. Their well-being evidently requires the liberty on their part of pursuing their own happiness according to their own notions of it, and it clearly demands the disposal at their pleasure of the entire fruits of their own labor. That is, it requires the complete cessation of the master's empire. But it is impossible for the same thing to be and not to be at the same time, so that whoever wishes to retain the character of a master and to exercise the prerogative which that character confers, implies, is driven by an invincible necessity to disregard the well-being of his slaves and to consider solely his own profit. Whether indeed that profit is best promoted by retaining the character of the master at all, whether the master's interest upon a full and comprehensive view of it might not be advanced by ceasing to be master is a question not under discussion. But in the communities where all are free, how many are there who regard any interest except their own? And wherein in particular evil of slavery is in this respect? The peculiar evil of slavery consists in the very fact that the slaves do not stand in this particular on a level with other men. They are not allowed to pursue their own interests. Not only is the well-being of the slaves disregarded by the master, it is deliberately sacrificed. Left to themselves like other men, they would pursue their own happiness, with success less or greater. But their own happiness is a thing that they are not suffered to pursue. And if yielding to the instinctive impulses of nature, they make the attempt, they are thwarted and driven back to every turn. Their own comfort and pleasure is a thing they are not allowed to think of at all, or to think only at the risk of the lash. In free communities, selfishness itself is enlisted into the service of benevolence. In order to obtain favors, it is necessary to confer them. Mutual services are secured by the attraction of mutual interest, but mutually is a thing which slavery knows not. The master does not say, work for me and I will give you in return whatever to feed and clothe yourself and family. Work for me, he says, or I will torture you with the lash. If the master supplies the slaves with food and clothes, he does not do it by way of compensation for labor. It is a necessary expenditure grudgingly laid out in order to keep the human machines in motion. So far from being in the nature of a bargain or contract, slavery is nothing but violence upon one side and compulsive obedience upon the other. Okay? Now, section 4, means of enforcing the master's empire. To sustain an empire of kind above described, it is evident that the most vigorous means must be essential. The means employed are chiefly are chiefly three, to wit, force, fear, and fraud. So slavery was maintained in certain areas when they, kidnapped the people, the Indian prisoners, and they held them hostage by force, fear, and fraud, guys. Force, fear, and fraud, according to the different tempers, talents, habits, and notions of the master. One of the other of these three means is made the key to his system. Number 1, force. Those masters whose tempers are harsh, violent, and brutal, especially those who have never been softened by education and who are strangers to refinements of cultivated life, and others who are endowed with a firm, decided vigor that moves directly to the point and by the shortest way, rely principally upon force. Is the slave late in coming into the field? 20 lashes. Is he idle? 30 lashes. Does he disobey or neglect an order? 40 lashes. Does he negligently waste or destroy his master's property? 50 lashes. Is he detected in a lie? 60 lashes. Is he strongly suspected of theft? 70 lashes. Does he say or do anything that can be construed into insolence? 80 lashes. Is he guilty of the slightest act of insubordination? 100 lashes. Does he venture to a runaway? Let him be pursued by men and dogs, disabled by small shot, and so soon as he taken, be flogged until he faints, then be worked in chains, locked up every night, and kept on half allowance till his spirits are broken, and he becomes obedient and contented. Should he dare upon any occasion to offer any resistance, let him be shot, stabbed, beat to the ground with a club, and should not be killed in the process. As soon as he is far recovered as to be able to stand, let him be subjected to all the discipline mentioned in the preceding sentence. In addition, be flogged every night for 30 days in succession. Such is a brief specimen of this system of plantation management, which some call cruel. but which those who follow it merely describe as vigorous, inefficient, like some of these presidents who own all of them pretty much. The second thing is fear. They rule by fear. But there are many men naturally soft-hearted who cannot look without some feelings of sympathetic pain or the least of instinctive disgust upon the body of an old man or a woman perhaps cut up with lash and scored by the bloody gashes. The screams and outcries of the victims affect them disagreeably. They lack the harsh, unfeeling vigor, that stern promptitude, tyranny's steadfast and most efficient support. They endeavor to avoid the actual use of the whip and to govern as far as possible by the fear of it. They utter most tremendous threats and strive to supply by bitter and alarming words the place of action. But words, when they are found to be intended only as scarecrows, soon lose their efficiency. It is therefore necessary to maintain a steady stream, and the master who governs upon this wordy plan soon comes to keep both himself and his slaves in a constant state of irritation and ill feeling by a process of fault finding, scalding, and threats, which process of which becomes a habit and goes on from morning to night, from day to day, from one year end to another. The slaves who thus made to feel every moment the weight of tyranny and the humiliation of servitude contract towards these snarling masters the sincerest hate, and from hating being soon satisfied that with all their bluster they not the vigor of act up to their threats. They come presently to despise them. Whether they do well or ill, it is much the same. The master scolds by the habit. But though he scolds, as yet he does not punish, and the holder among the slaves soon begins to try experiments upon his patience. They are encouraged by the impunity of the first transgression to take greater and greater liberties. Their example finds imitators, till presently the whole plantation falls into a state of idleness and insubordination which cannot be longer overlooked or endured. The master must now give up the hope of revenue from his slaves, and he must reestablish his authority. He begins with moderate whippings, but his first attempts in this way are laughed at and perhaps resisted. He is alarmed and inflamed. Anger and fear supply a vigor he does not naturally possess. He storms and raves, flogs without mercy, shoots, stabs, chains, imprisons, starves, tortures. His nature seems to be changed, and for a while he acts out a tyrant in the most savage and vindictive spirit of despotism. The slaves bend and howl beneath their whirlwind of tyranny. The most turbulent and unimaginable, those of them at least who have escaped with their lives, are sent off and sold, and presently things subside into their former state. The master grows ashamed of his violence and perhaps endures some twinges of remorse. The lash is disused and the tongue supplies its place. The discipline of the plantation is presently relaxed. The servants become idle and insubordinate as before. But this flattering calm cannot be relied upon. A new storm of tyranny is secretly brewing, which will burst at a moment when it's least expected. Number 3, fraud. There are some masters who pride themselves upon cunning and superior knowledge of human nature, who make considerable use of fraud in the management of their slaves. But this is a means employed only occasionally, in which the efficiency is not great. One of the most usual application of it is the attempt to take advantage of the religious feelings of slaves. Ooh. So, let's read that again. One of the most usual applications of fraud in the slave system is the attempt to take advantage of the religious feelings of slaves and to impress them with the idea that obedience, honesty towards the master, humble submission, other plantation virtues are religious duties which God commands under the penalty of damnation. Fuck out of here, man. What these people got? What y'all got going on? Like, the stratagem is chiefly practiced by slave-holding clergymen and church members. How? You a slave-holding preacher or a slave-holding church member? how these people was outrageous. Outrageous. The religious people of the South have been at the pains of preparing a slave catechism. In some places, they have established slave Sunday school. Y'all don't hear me. Can somebody in the back say, I hear you? I hear you, Dr. Sean. You ain't talking to a bunch of empty seats. I mean, I feel like this is important stuff for people to know. I know I just read a lot because I feel like it was important. I just read a lot, but do you understand why I read a lot? Is so we can get to the point where these phrases mean something. Do y'all understand what these people said? Right? So in the beginning, they already told you, okay, slavery is another name for homicide, right? So when they came and they seized the land, they took the Indian prisoners in America into slavery. So who was people always talking about coming from slavery? Who did Trump say was the babies of slavery? He talking about us, the Indian prisoners, when they seized the land, took the plantation and led by fear, fraud, and force. And he talks about, they just talk about how they didn't want to end it and the things that they had to do to make the prisoners cooperate. But they didn't capture everybody. Everybody wasn't under their thumb, But they did commit fraud when it comes to who you are, when it comes to what you practice with religion. They made church a part of slavery. I don't think people understand what I'm trying to say here. Like, this is why I rather read history, because it opened my eyes up to a lot of shit. I can't even be asleep no more. I can't be in an identity that is not me. I identify as 100% Niji because of what I read, because of the tricks that I know that they wrote about. And this is just another one of them. I'm sorry to break it to you. I'm sorry, but this is what they did. You got to understand what they did, man. They had slave Sunday school. They forced them to go to Sunday school. So when you hear the word Sunday school, this is where it's coming from, guys. These evil people. When you hear, I gotta read this again. I gotta read it again for myself. Let me see. Let me read this again. So in America, the slave holders practice fraud. Okay. As a way to manage their slaves, they made them go to church. One of the most usual applications of it is the attempt to take advantage of the religious feelings of the slaves and to impress them with the idea that obedience, honesty towards their masters, humble submission, and other like plantation virtues are religious duties which God commands under the penalty of damnation. The stratagem is chiefly practiced by slave-holding clergymen, which means preachers who have slaves, and church members who have so confused. The religious people of the South have been at the pains of preparing a slave catechism. In some places, they have established slave Sunday schools, and meetings for slave worship are regularly held. What that sound like? Sound like church. I'm sorry, that's what it sounded like to me. Sound like they forced you to go to church and read the Bible as a part of their control of you being a prisoner. The things that I read make me want to cry. I know that no one is catching this right now. It's just kind of sad. It's kind of sad, that they had slave Sunday school and meetings for slave worship are regularly held. The immediate of those proceedings are generally men of good intentions but very feeble understandings. They are mere tools in the hands of crafty hypocrites. The motive of their labors is doubtless the spiritual welfare of the slaves, but those by whom they are supported and encouraged, however tender a regard they may have for the salvation of their own souls, look upon religion among slaves merely as a means of plantation discipline, and please themselves with the idea that the more religious their slaves are, the easier they may be to manage. Oh. What the fuck, guys? Did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear that? If you watch it on TikTok, you gotta go on Twitch or YouTube so you can read with me. But because I got the book pulled up, I can't pull it up on TikTok. But did y'all hear what the fuck they just said? Did y'all hear what they said? Now, see, I came from being a Christian, diehard Christian, raised in the church, all of that. Watch night, Sunday school, everyday church. I came from that. So I've been in this a whole nother identity, African American identity, until I realized who the hell I was. And I read stuff like this and I'm like, what the fuck? Y'all did that to trick us? To make us less like, you actually did it to break our spirit, but told us it was building our spirit. But you did it to make us weaker so you can manage us? This is why I say I can't make this, so you gotta read it for yourself. Go get this book and read it for yourself. I think you'll have an eye-opening experience about life. Okay? If you think you're a slave, just go read it for yourself. So you ain't gotta keep claiming that shit. You really are a POW. The government knows this. This might sound crazy, but this is information on the government site. Like, what? So I ain't finna be something I know that I'm not. Anywho, it said the agents, I gotta read the last part again because that really threw me off. It says the motive of their labors and doubtless the spiritual welfare of slaves, but those whom they are supported and encouraged, however a tender regard they may have for the salvation of their own souls, look upon religion among slaves merely as a means of plantation discipline, and please themselves with the idea that the more religious their slaves are, the easier they may be to manage. The agents employed in this double service of Christianity and despotism, which is Christianity and cruelty, often succeed in kindling a warm spirit of devotion in the hearts of the slaves. But they have often occasion to deplore the inconsistency, the backsliding, the delusion of their converts who cannot be made to realize in its full extent the enormous sinfulness of any attempt to elude that tyranny under which providence requires them patiently and even joyfully to submit. Deeply sympathizing with the sad and almost angry feelings with which these pious people are accustomed to lament the small success of their labors, and to accuse that stony hardness and inherent depravity which prevents even the converted slave from attaining to the perfection of humility and obedience. The remark nevertheless may with all due defiance be permitted, that so long as these pious teachers are able to construe the generous precepts of the gospel into an apology and justification for tyranny, it cannot be considered very surprising that their pupils among the slaves should instinctively acquire the art of reconciling with Christian patience and submission any and every means whereby they can shake off, alleviate, or elude the usurped authority of their masters. But this piece of pious fraud is falling into bad odor at the South. It has been found that religion causes an excitement among the slaves, both dangerous and troublesome. The rascals preach and pray when they ought to be working. Besides, the religious enthusiasm which kindles so readily in the most ignorant as well as the most cultivated mind give rise to dangerous exaltation of soul, which makes the subject of it abstinent and unmanageable. Religion once awakened in such savage and untaught bosoms is apt to degenerate into superstitious fanaticism. The gifted and the artful begin to see visions and to dream dreams. They are not content with being healers and pupils. They aspire to be speakers and teachers. In their sermons and exhortations, it is the vices, the luxury, the cruelty, the wickedness of the masters upon which they principally dwell, and whence they draw examples and illustrations. And who knows but someone more enraptured than the rest may imagine himself called, like Moses of old, to smile the taskmaster and to lead forth the oppressed children. For this reason, the Bible has been prescribed at the South as an incendiary publication, a book not fit for slaves to read or hear. In some parts of the country, the catechism is looked upon with almost equal suspicion, and many masters forbid their slaves to hear any preacher, black or white, since they consider religion upon a plantation as quite out of place, a thing dangerous to the master's authority, and therefore not to be endured in the slave. Another stratagem occasionally employed when it is desired to stimulate the efforts of slaves is the distribution of little prizes among those accustomed to the greatest labor in the shortest time. This contrivance works wonderfully well for a few days, but as soon as it's discovered who is the best workman, the emulator is confined to them, and the greater number who have no choice to win the prize presently relapse into formal apathy. Besides, the distribution of prizes is an apt to give rise among the slaves to the inconvenient notion that they ought to be paid for working, and the moment it ceases, they work more grudgingly, unwillingly, and negligently than ever. Moreover, it is expensive in the minds of most planters, a decisive objection against it. I'm going to stop there with this because this thing, it goes on. It's 198 pages talking about this, but I think you get what I'm trying to say. Okay? This is an interesting page because it talks about prisoners of war, just us being prisoners of war and rebellion, and it just goes really, really, really deep, really deep. But we can't read all this today, of course. But this is a good book for y'all to go. What's up, Auntie? This is a good book for you guys to go and read because it talks about what is going on here in America. And I know most people won't go read it, but I just like to read and see what's going on. Bless you. Hey, Auntie. I like to see what's going on for my people so we can know. But this is the name of the book if you want to go read it. Now, this book led me to the next thing we're going to talk about, which is Black Code. Black Code. Now, Black Code pissed me off because you keep hearing Black Code in the news. I kept seeing Black Code, but I never really understood what Black Code was. Alright? So basically the book we just read was Despotism in America. So before the Civil War, they talked about despotism or cruelty in America among people who had been taken as POWs. And after the Civil War, they said, we can't eat the people. We can't just beat them to a pulp. Now we just got to make them work. And it was like, okay, we can't make them work for free. So we got to, figure out how we're going to make them go to work. So I feel like the Black Codes was how they did it. And I didn't know anything about what was in here before I read it, but when I read it, I was just like, what the hell? What the hell? No wonder why we going to work every day. No wonder why we have this like work mentality. Because you can imagine your ancestors having lots of land that you're going to inherit eventually, and that land being seized by war and settlers. And now these settlers are making you work on it for free, but they can't make you work forever for free. So then they said, okay, you can't have slaves no more after the Civil War. You can't kidnap people. You can't do that no more. They said, what we gonna do? So they found another way to make you come back to work, make you feel like you're getting paid, but really you're getting ripped off. That's what I found to be the overall senses of the Black Codes. Okay, are we gonna read this? I like to read. I'm gonna read it. If you can't listen to it all, come back and listen later. But we're gonna read the Mississippi Black Codes 1865. Let's see what they said, because it's codes that they was telling each other about the POWs, about the Indians that they call black, Negro, colored, all of those things, the Niji. That's what they called us. So let's go into the black codes now. I'm gonna try not to stop so much, but they be seeing some crazy stuff, and I just have to give a little commentary. So let's go. Let's go. So Mississippi Black Codes 1865. An act to confer civil rights on freedmen and other purposes, abridged. Section 1. All freemen, free Negroes, and mulattoes may sue or be sued and be pleaded in all courts of law and equity in this state, and may acquire personal property and chooses an action by descent or purchase, and may dispose of the same in the manner and the same extent that white persons may, provided that the provisions of this section shall not be construed as to allow any freeman, free Negro, or mulatto to rent or lease any lands or tenements except in incorporated cities or towns, in which places the corporate authorities shall control the same. What they were saying in that is, after they won the Civil War, stole all the land, that you couldn't even rent or lease any lands except in the incorporated cities and towns that they had for you. So that's where projects came from. You couldn't rent unless it was like in the projects or in areas where they now restricted these people to go. Okay. Section 2. All freemen, free Negroes, and mulattoes may intermarry with each other in the same manner and under same regulations that are provided by law for white persons, provided that the clerk of probate shall keep separate records of the same. Section 3. All freemen and free Negroes or mulattoes who do not now or have herebefore lived or cohabitated together as husband and wife shall be taken and held in law as legally married, and the issue shall be taken and held as legitimate for all purposes, that it shall be lawful for any freeman, free Negro, or mulatto to intermarry with any white person, nor for any white person to intermarry any freeman, free Negro, or mulatto. And any person who shall intermarry shall be deemed guilty of a felony, and on conviction thereof shall be confined to state penitentiary for life. Just for marrying, what? For life? And those shall be deemed freemen, free Negroes, and mulattoes who are pure Negro blood, and those descended from a Negro to the third generation, inclusive, though one ancestor in each generation may have been a white person. Okay. Section 4. In addition to cases in which freemen, free Negroes, and mulattoes are now by law competent witnesses, freemen, free Negro, and mulattoes shall be competent in civil cases when a party or parties to the suit, other plaintiff or plaintiffs, defendant and defendants, and white or white persons is or are the opposing party or parties, plaintiff or plaintiffs, defendant or defendants. They shall also be competent witnesses in all criminal prosecutions where the crime charge is alleged to have been committed by a white person or against the person or property of a freeman, free Negro, or mulatto, provided that in all cases said witnesses shall be examined in open court on the stand, except however they may be examined before the grand jury, and shall in all cases be subject to rules and tests of the common law as competency and credibility. Okay? All right. So, Section 5. Every freeman, free Negro, and mulatto shall on the second Monday of January 1865 and annually thereafter have a lawful home or employment, and shall have written evidence thereof as follows, to wit, if living in any incorporated city, town, or village, a license from that mayor thereof, and if living outside of an incorporated city, town, and village, from the member of the board of police of his beat, authorizing him or her to do irregular or job work, or a written contract as provided in Section 6 in this act, which a license may be revoked for cause at any time by the authority granting the same. So basically what they're saying, After 1865, every free man, every free Negro, every mulatto shall have lawful home and employment, or you gonna go to jail if you don't go to work. Basically, what they was saying. And in order to do that, you got to go. Um, you had to have a license to go to work. And if you were in a city that wasn't inside of their incorporated towns, village, or city, then you got to go to the police of that area and let them know that you're going to work. What the fuck? Can't make this stuff up. Section 6. All contracts for labor made with freemen, free Negro, and mulattoes for longer than a period of 1 month shall be in writing and in duplicate, attested and read to said freeman, free Negro, or mulatto by a beat, city, or county officer, or to disinterested white person of the county in which the labor is to be performed, or of which each party shall have one, and said contract shall be taken and held as an entire contract. And if the laborer shall quit the service of the employer before the expiration of his service term without good cause, he shall forfeit his wages for that year up to the time of quitting. Meaning that if you quit your job after you've been working, so if you had a job that was longer than a month, that means that they put you under the contract. They put you under a contract for like a year. And if you quit before that year, say you were around these evil people and you wanted to quit your job, they would take your money for the whole year. From the time you quit all the way up to the whole year, they would take your money. Crazy, right? Section 7. Every civil officer shall and every person may arrest and carry back to his or her legal employer any freeman, free Negro, mulatto who shall quit the service of his or her employer before the expiration of his or her term of service without good cause. And said officer and person shall be entitled to receive for arresting and carrying back every deserting employee, aforesaid the sum of $5.10 per mile from the place of arrest to the place of delivery, and the same shall be paid to the employer and held as set off for so much against the wages of said deserting employee, provided that said arrested party, after being so returned, may appeal to the justice of the peace or member of the board of police of the county, who on notice to the alleged employer shall try summarily whether said appellant is legally employed by the alleged employer and has good cause to quit said employer. Either party shall have the right to appeal to the county court, pending which the alleged deserter shall be remanded to the alleged employer and otherwise disposed of as shall be right and just, and the decision of the court shall be final. Meaning, thank you for the follow, Dave Onyx. Meaning, they was saying back then, if you didn't go to work, so they made it after the war, you had to go to work. And you had to have somewhere to live that was inside of their town. And if you didn't go to work, for a white person, then you would be dealt with in the court. And if you quit your job, say this person was being cruel, because they was being cruel back then, that you couldn't quit your job. If you was there for longer than a month, this was a contract and you couldn't quit. And if you did quit, they would take you back and you would have to pay the officer and you would have to pay your employer all your wages. So that means they took you back, basically back into slavery. So now you had to work for free because they was finna take your money because you quit. Psycho as hell. That's what it sounds like to me. Sounds psycho. Like, who makes things like this? Psychos. Section 8. Upon affidavit made by the employer or any freeman, free Negro, or mulatto, or credible persons before any justice of the peace or member of the board of police, that any freeman, free Negro, or mulatto legally employed by said employer has illegally deserted said employment, such justice of the peace or member of the board of police issue his warrant or warrants returnable before himself or other such officer to any sheriff, constable, or special deputy, commanding him to arrest said deserter and return him or her to said employer, and the like proceeding shall be held as provided in the preceding section, and it shall be lawful for any officer to whom such warrant shall be directed to execute and warrant in any county in this state, and that said warrant shall be transmitted without endorsement to any like officer of another county, to be executed and returned as aforesaid. And they said employers shall pay the cost of said warrants in arrest and return, which shall be set off so much against the wages of the deserter. So basically, if you quit your job and you didn't go to work, they would issue a warrant for your arrest. And then when they caught you, you had to go back to that work for free. What kind of psycho shit is that? They made you go to work. This is black codes. When you hear black codes, I want you to know what they saying when they say about the black codes and the Jim Crow laws. That was basically just trying to make you go to work for free, because they couldn't do slavery no more. So they made these codes so that you could go to work counted as a slave and still be treated bad and not be able to quit, or you would have to get a warrant. When what? You giving warrants because people don't want to be at a racist job? Yeah. So this is the time when they was starting to get people who were not POWs caught up in a system that had nothing to do with them. Like, if they would catch you, hey, why you ain't at work? Like, what are you talking about, sir? I don't even know you. Why you all up in my business? Oh, you got a warrant because you quit your job? What? You can't make this stuff up. That's why I love reading about history. I mean, I have to read it now, because if I don't read it, you know what they said. Ignorance, knowledge, will forever govern ignorance. So I want to get the knowledge. I don't want nobody to tell me what the black code mean. I want to read this for myself. I don't want you to tell me. I need to read this for myself. Because as a Niji, I need to understand the tricks that they did. How do we get caught up in this? So when you going to work 9 to 5 now, that ain't no coincidence, my Niji. When you going to Sunday school, that ain't no coincidence. This is all built into the system to break your spirit, to make you go to work, to make you, people going to work, they feel like robots. This is by force. And we always feel like, dang, why is it set up like this? Because this is by force. Since the 1800s, they've been trying to figure out how can we get these people to work and do the labor and make us a profit without like the lash. Because you heard in the last book we were reading, if you just watch it and go back and read Despotism in America, you can find that book on the Library of Congress for free. You don't even got to pay for it. Just download it to your phone and read it, and you'll be enlightened, 100 years enlightened. Because these black codes, I get tired of hearing people talk about things that I really haven't read and studied. So now I'm like, oh, that's what the black codes is? It's just evil. So when I go read the Jim Crow laws, I know it's going to be evil again. When I go read the Willie Lynch letter, it's going to be evil again. So you can kind of see what the fuck going on. Section 8. Did I read Section 8 already? Yeah, I did read Section 8, where it was issuing warrants for you not going to work. So when you feel like you want to go to work now, that's why. Everybody feel like they got to have a job. That's why, because they was arresting you back 100 and something years ago. They made it a thing, and then now they don't even have to arrest you to go to work because you do it by yourself. You going to overwork by yourself. You know, they don't even got to do nothing. You going to filling out the paperwork by yourself. But it didn't start by you being willing to. It started by them using the police and warrants to get you to go and make them some money for their company. This is not me just making this up. This is what they said. And I like to give you what they said. Not what I said. This is what they said. Okay? Let's not be ignorant, because remember, knowledge will forever govern your ass. If you want to be ignorant, you're going to be forever governed by knowledge that people know that you don't have no idea about. You're going to be walking around here looking like a zombie, working forever, thinking that's... No, going crazy, depressed, thinking that you're overworked and burnt out when it's all been designed to be this way. The 9 to 5 is a trap. All this stuff is a trap. You might say, dang, Dr. Sean, what do we do? Hell, I'm just reading this myself too. At this point, the thing that we can do now is continue to get the knowledge, Continue to know who you are. Do your genealogy. I showed y'all in the beginning me doing my genealogy, just months of work. But start the process. Don't be afraid of it. Don't look my tree get you like, oh my God, you did too. Start the process. Know who you are. Read. To be a leader, you must be a reader. That's why I'm cheat this, because I will go back and read this stuff. I'm gonna read it. Like when I first signed my dental contract, like to get my first job, ironically, they send you a contract like 10, 15 pages. I read it all because I want to know what I'm signing my name on. You better read stuff. Don't be just signing your name on shit. You don't know what's in these things you signing. This could have been all in the things they was signing back then. They didn't know. They didn't know these people was, well, they probably knew they was this evil, but you know what I'm saying? They just didn't know. And for me, this is baffling that people will make laws, issue warrants, and take your life. Like, what? You could go to jail for life just for marrying somebody of the opposite race. Like, they people weren't playing back then. They was psychotic. Okay, I'm getting a little off track. Let's go to section 9. If any person shall persuade or attempt to persuade, entice, or cause any freeman, free negro, or mulatto to desert their legal employment of any person before the expiration of his or her service term, or shall knowingly employ any such deserting freeman, free negro, or mulatto, or shall knowingly give or sell to any such deserting freeman, free negro, or mulatto any food, raiment, or any or other thing, he shall be guilty of a misdemeanor, and upon conviction shall be fined not less than $25 and not more than $200 and the cost. And if said fine and cost shall not be immediately paid, the court shall sentence said convict to not exceeding 2 months imprisonment in county jail, or he or she shall moreover be liable to the party injured in damages, provided if any person shall attempt to persuade, entice, or cause any freeman, free negro, or mulatto to desert any legal employment of any person with the view of employ said freeman, free negro, or mulatto without the limits of the state, such person or on conviction shall be fined no less than $50 and not more than $200 in cost. And if said fine and cost shall not be immediately paid, the court shall sentence said convict to not exceeding 6 months imprisonment in county jail. So you could go to jail for 6 months if you were a white person trying to help a freeman, basically indigenous Niji. You was trying to help the American Indian. You was trying to help the free Negro. You could go to jail for the 6 months. You had to pay all kind of fines. You couldn't even sell them food. None of that if they didn't go to work. That's basically what it's saying. If you didn't have a job and you was deserting your job and you got caught trying to help somebody who wasn't going to work, who left their job before their contract was up, then you could go to jail. So they made it so even the white people could go to jail and get fined for helping the Niji. So this person who didn't have a job, not going to job, they got warrants for their arrest. They can't buy food. They can't, like, what? Just because you ain't going to work? That's that shit that pissed me off. Like, reading this history will piss you the fuck off. Because it's like, what? Confused as fuck. Like, what are y'all talking about? Like, what? Section 10. It shall be lawful for any freeman, free negro, or mulatto to charge any white person, freeman, free negro, or mulatto by affidavit with any criminal offense against his or her person or property, and upon such affidavit the proper process shall be issued and executed as if said affidavit was made by a white person. And it shall be lawful for any freeman, free negro, mulatto in any action, suit, or controversy pending about to be instituted in any court of law, equity in this state to make all needful and lawful affidavits as shall be necessary for the institution, prosecution, and defense of such suit and controversy. So they put all these words in here so you don't want to go read it, so you don't feel like it's like too many words. But see, I'm going to read it all and then summarize it for you. Give you a little conclusion, a little critical thinking, and a little comprehension. So that part right there is just saying, hey, you can press charges, you can file an affidavit, for any criminal offense against you. Section 11. The penal laws of this state in all cases not otherwise specifically provided for shall apply and extend to all freemen, free Negro, and mulattoes. All right, moving right along. We about halfway through. You know. You can watch this on the replay, but I'm reading it all. I mean, I already read it all, but I'm just reading it again for the live. I feel like this is important to break this thing down so we can know what they saying when they say black codes, because you're going to hear it again, I promise you. An act to regulate the relation of master and apprentice as relates to freemen, free Negroes, and mulattoes. So they took it from master and apprentice. So they were still your master, but now instead of their slave, you became their apprentice. Somebody who they paid sometimes, but if you didn't do right and they was mean and they beat you and they still was racist, you couldn't leave. And if you tried to leave, the police would make you go back and issue a warrant. Sound crazy. Imagine somebody being rude at your job and you can't leave. And you just having to be stuck here. And if you leave, you're going to get a warrant. Like, what? Imagine how many people, little teenagers now, who don't want to go to work, and imagine them issuing a warrant for that. Like, what? Section 1. It shall be the duty of all sheriffs, justices of peace, and other civil officers of several counties in this state to report probate courts of their respective counties semi-annually at the January and July terms of said courts. All freemen, free Negroes, and mulattoes under the age of 18 in their respective counties, beats, or district who are orphans or whose parents or parent have not the means or who refuse to provide for and support said minors, and thereupon it shall be the duty of said probate court to order the clerk of said court to apprentice said minors to some competent and suitable person on such terms as the court may direct, having a particular care to the interests of said minor, provided that the former owner of said minor shall have the preference when, in the opinion of the court, he or she shall be a suitable person for that purpose. So now they get into taking your kids. Section 2. The said court shall be fully satisfied that the person or persons to whom said minor shall be apprenticed shall be suitable person to have the charge and care of said minor, and fully protect the interests of said minor. The said court shall require the said master or mistress to execute bond and security payable to the state of Mississippi, condition that he or she shall furnish said minor with sufficient food and clothing, to treat said minor humanely, furnish medical attention in case of sickness, teach and cause to be taught him and her to read and write if under 15 years old, and will conform to any law, and will conform to and will conform to any law. Where am I? Any law that may be hereafter passed for the regulation of the duties and relation of the master and apprentice. I find it funny that they're using the word master and apprentice because these kids are under 18 and they're assigning them to a master, but they calling them an apprentice. It's kind of crazy. That's crazy to me, man. Like, what the hell? Provided that said apprentice shall be bound by indenture in case of males until they are 21 years old, and in case of females, 18 years old. So if you were a male who, your parents couldn't take care of you to how they saw fit, and if they wanted to take your kids, they would take your kids, assign them to a new master or mistress, and if you were a male, you had to stay there until you was 21 years old. 21. Females 18, but males 21 by law. You had to be there basically slave, aka apprentice. Fuck out of here, man. Stuff is so evil, man. Section 3. In the management and control of said apprentice, said master or mistress shall have the power to inflict. Now this is the part that made me want to cry. The black codes. This is the part that make me want to cry. Because I told y'all, now they're trying to figure out a way for the kids to come and work on the plantations and at the places and labor. They wanted to take the kids, put them in boarding schools, right? So they would take the kids, by law, take the kids, make them work until they're 18 or 21 years old now, and they couldn't leave. Because if they left, they would get a warrant the same way the adults would get a warrant if they didn't go to work. So they was doing this across the board to the kids and to the adults. I need y'all to understand how deep this shit go. Okay? Now the next part, it almost made me want to cry again. Because it's like, what the hell? Section 3. In the management and control of said apprentice, said master or mistress shall have the power to inflict such moderate corporal chastisement as a father or guardian is allowed to inflict on his or her child or ward at common law, provided that in no case shall cruel or inhumane punishment be inflicted. So they're saying you can whoop the child. That's basically what they're saying, but you couldn't be cruel. But you already know they was being super cruel and, you know, doing the same thing they did before the 1865. They just wrote it down like that, but you already know they was abusing these kids in foster care. You could probably find even now people who go into foster care getting mistreated. That system comes from the black codes. Are y'all tired what I'm saying? It comes from back then when they was trying to get you off of the lash to the labor. Alright? If apprentice shall leave the employment of his or her master or mistress without his or her consent, said master or mistress may pursue and recapture. You heard that right. They could get the child, pursue and recapture said apprentice, and bring him or her before any justice of peace of the county, whose duty it shall be to remand said apprentice to the service of his or her master or mistress. You see how they said the service? So basically this child is living with this master or mistress and basically being their servant. That's fucking crazy. And in the event of a refusal on part of said mistress so to return, then said justice shall commit said apprentice to jail of said county on failure to give bond to the next term of the county court. And it shall be the duty of said court in the first term thereafter to investigate said cause, and if the court shall be opinion that said apprentice left the employment of his or her master or mistress without good cause, to order him or her to be punished as provided for the punishment of hired freedmen, as may be service of his or her master, provided that the court may grant continuance as in other cases, and provided further that if the court shall believe that said apprentice had good cause to quit his said master or mistress, the court shall discharge said apprentice from said indenture, and also enter a judgment against the master or mistress for not more than $100 from the use and benefit of said apprentice, to be collected on execution as in other cases. So basically they worded that where the child could go to work, but they had it where you weren't taking care of the child, so we're going to make the child go work for a master for 18 years, for 21 years. And if they don't go, and if they being mistreated and getting whooped or something, then y'all going to make them go to jail? Are we talking about kids still? Fuck is going on? I feel like I'm in a Twilight Zone reading this shit. Twilight Zone. Like, who thinks like this? To treat little kids like this, to lock them up because they don't want to get beat by somebody who they got to call master. Think about it. Your parents gone. All right, maybe they thinking that, maybe they lying and seeing the parent. Maybe somebody, we don't know what happened, but they come and kidnap your kids, get your kids, send them to somebody White House, make them their master now. So your kids is their apprentice, and this is their master. So they're supposed to slave for this person, and if they don't, they're gonna get beat. Legally now, they put it in law. You could get beat, right? So if you get beat and you run away, now you going to jail, and you a kid. And y'all wonder why we have so many mental health issues in our community, because we've been forced to go to work, forced to go to school, forced to have master type relationships. Even at work, they call it your boss now. The boss is the master. Okay? That's what they call it. Forced to do all these things, not by choice. And you wonder why it's passed down generation after generation after generation. This is called a generational curse, because you don't see how it started, but if you go back, you'll see where that seed was planted. When you see a lot of these terms in here, continuances and misdemeanors, all of this started by attacking us. Now it's turned into, you get a misdemeanor for that. They got so many of these laws now that it's outrageous. But these laws are just to make you a prisoner, man. It's not to help you. It's just to help you labor. And you know, if you go to prison or jail, they make money. You probably make more money per day in jail than you do out of jail, and it's sad. They get money from that. So when they was locking people up and paying all these fines, this is how they started their little system. Oh, we can lock you up and you can pay a fine, and it gets deeper, guys. Let's keep going, because this stuff right here be pissing me the hell off. Section 5. If any person entice away an apprentice from, they talking about children now, from his or her master or mistress, or shall knowingly employ an apprentice or furnish him with food or clothing without the written consent of his or her master or mistress. You couldn't even feed these kids without the consent of their master or mistress. And they got this in here. You got to get consent. Or shall sell or give said apprentice spirits, meaning alcohol, without such consent, said person so offending shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. So you fed a needy, melanated kid, maybe their master treating them wrong, you could get a misdemeanor. Just for feeding somebody? Giving them clothes or food? Like, you couldn't even just be like, oh, you can fit these pants. You're going to get a misdemeanor. And shall, upon conviction there or of before the county court, be punished as provided for the punishment of person enticing from their employer hired freeman, free negro, or mulatto. Section 6. It shall be the duty of civil officers of their respective counties to report any minors within their respective counties to said probate court who are subject to be apprenticed under the provisions of this act, from time to time as the facts may come to their knowledge, and it shall be the duty of said court from time to time as said minors shall be reported to them or otherwise come to their knowledge to apprentice said minors as here and before provided. They be using all these long ass words. This is what people don't want to read, the fluff. But you see the code inside of all the fluff. You can see the code. You know what's going on. It was all about making you go to work, kids and adults. If you didn't go, you're going to jail, or you're getting fined, or you're still going to work and they're just going to take your money because you don't want to go to work. Make that make sense. Alright? And I feel like a lot of these people got stuck on these places because they would never let them go. You hear these stories about people getting stuck and didn't know that you couldn't do that no more. Like, they was like, I didn't know slavery was over. I didn't know that they made a law for that to be over. And they've been working forever because they had these laws where if you left, they could make you their slave, basically. That's basically what it's saying. If you left the job, now you can work for free. Like, it just breaks my heart hearing what people went through dealing with all of this demonic type of fucking mindset. Okay, we're going on to the 5th page, and it's just one more page left after this. An act to amend the vagrant laws of the state. Section 1. All rogues and vagabonds, idle and dissipate persons, beggars, jugglers, or persons practicing unlawful games or plays, runways, common drunkards, common night walkers, pilferers, lewd, wanton, and lascivious persons in speech or behavior, common railers and brawlers, persons who neglect their calling or employment, misspend what they can earn, and do not provide the support for themselves or their families or dependents, and all other idle and disorderly persons, including all who neglect the lawful business, habitually misspend their time by frequenting houses of ill fame, gaming houses, or tipping shops, shall be deemed and considered vagrants. Under the provision of this act, Upon conviction thereof shall be fined not exceeding $100 with accruing costs and be imprisoned at the discretion of court not exceeding 10 days. So this is where they start to make the legal law so they can lock you up for bullshit. Just for asking for money or, you know, drinking, like anything that they wanted to, they could make a law, charge you, and put you in jail. So the same system exists today. If you get arrested and you get a misdemeanor or these charges, you got to pay some money and you going to jail. The same thing. This is where it started from the black codes. All right. Section 2. All free men, free Negroes, and mulattoes in this state over the age of 18 years found on the second Monday in January 1866 and or thereafter with no lawful employment or business are found unlawfully assembling themselves together either in the day or the nighttime, and all white persons assembling themselves with freemen, free Negro or mulatto, or usually associating with freemen, free Negro or mulatto on terms of equality, or living in adultery or fornication with a freed woman, free Negro or mulatto, shall be deemed vagrants. And on conviction thereof shall be fined in a sum not exceeding, in the case of a freedman, free Negro or mulatto, $50, and a white man, $200, and imprisonment at the discretion of the court. The free Negro not exceeding 10 days, and the white man not exceeding 6 months. So if you were white, the penalties was harsher. If you was, you know, hanging with the Niji, the melanated people, you would go to jail for 6 months, and we would go to jail for 10 days. Like if you were caught gathering with your family, because say if you were over 18 and found after Monday, January 1866, without going to work, whether it was day or night, unlawfully assembling themselves together is what it said. You were going to work. Now, I ain't gonna hold y'all. In Florida, they're real heavy with the police down there. They don't like for the Niji, the melanated people, to gather, because they're gonna be right in the mix every time. This is why. You wonder why? This is why. If you in Mississippi, they had a law where you couldn't gather. So when I see people out doing the trail rides and the boots on the ground, I love to see it, because this was illegal 100 plus years ago. They made it illegal for you to get together with your people, and people wonder why the family reunion rate is down 46%. It's because of things like this. Everything is about work, 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 work. Don't get with your people. We want you to go to work. And if you was 18 years old or older in 1866, it was illegal for you not to go to work. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? It was illegal for you not to go to work, and you can have to pay a fine and go to jail if you were not working and mingling. Day or night, you were deemed a vagrant. You couldn't mingle. Meanwhile, they got the KKK and all these sons of the red man and daughter of Pocahontas type stuff where they could mingle. They got, what is it? The Knights of Columbus. They got all this stuff where they could mingle. The presidents was mingling. All these rules that they made was mingling. They just didn't want us to mingle, because we got power when we mingle. Just think about it. But that is one of the most craziest laws I ever seen. When you in a group and you see the popo pull up being nosy, that's where they get that shit from. The black codes. Against us, man. Section 3. I'm moving on. Section 3. All justices of peace, mayors, and aldermen of incorporated towns, counties, and cities of the several counties in this state shall have jurisdiction to try all questions of vagrancy in their respective town, counties, and cities, and it is hereby made their duty whenever they shall ascertain that any person or persons in their respective towns or counties and cities are violating any of the provisions in this act, to have said party or parties arrested and brought before them, and immediately investigate said charge, and on conviction punish said party or parties as provided for herein. And it is hereby made that the duty of all sheriffs, constables, and town jurisdiction all violations of any provision of this act, and in any case officer shall fail or neglect any duty herein, it shall be the duty of the county clerk to fine said officer upon conviction not exceeding $100 to be paid into the county treasury for county purposes. I didn't really get that part. I guess it's just saying if you don't bring them in, you can get fined. So if you wasn't part of the despotism, the cruelty, you could get fined for not being cruel. Like you had, they taught the white people to segregate, to be cruel, and they taught the black people that, you know, you got to go to work. That's it. Your life is about work. So you see the translation now, how it's just all about work all the time. It's about work. It's about bills. This is where it's coming from, guys. The black codes. The black codes. Section 4. Keepers of gaming houses, houses of prostitution, prostitutes, public or private, and all persons who derive their chief support in employment that mitigate against good morals or law shall be deemed and held vagrants. Section 5. All fines and forfeitures collected by the provision of this act shall be paid into the county treasury for general county purposes. In case of freeman, free negro, or mulatto shall fail for 5 days after the imposition of any or forfeiture upon him or her for violation of any of the provisions of this act to pay the same, and that it shall be and is hereby made the duty of the sheriff of the proper county to hire out said freeman, free negro, or mulatto to any person who will for the shortest period of service pay said fine and forfeiture all costs, provided a preference shall be given to the employer if there be one, in which case the employer shall be entitled to deduct and retain the amount so paid from the wages of such freeman, free negro, or mulatto then due or become due. And in case freeman, free negro, or mulatto cannot hire or hire out, he or she may be dealt with as a pauper. Pauper. So what this section is saying is that basically, you know, if you violate any of these provisions that we just talked about, gathering with your family, not going to work, you know, not having enough to take care of your kids sometimes, or, you know, just drinking, or whatever they deemed that they could make you go to work for, they would make it a law. So when you couldn't pay this, they would say, okay, since you can't pay it, guess what we're going to do? Find you a master, and now you're going to go work until you can pay it off. So when you see people in prison and they're on the side of the road working, this is where it come from. This is where it come from. Free labor. That's basically slavery all over again. Having somebody in prison and making them go to work for free. That's where it come from. Y'all seen a lot of correlations between the criminal system now and the black codes? There's a reason. You seen a lot of correlation with going to work in the black codes. I know I do. Okay. Section 6. The same duties and liabilities existing among white persons of this state shall attach to freemen, free negro, and mulattoes to support their indigent families, and all colored paupers. All colored paupers meaning poor people. And in that order to secure a support for such indigent freemen, free negroes, and mulattoes, it shall be lawful and it is hereby made the duty of the county police of each county in this state to levy a poll or capitation tax on each and every freeman, free negro, mulatto between the ages of 18 and 60 years old. It sounds like you signing up to one day retire from slavery. That's what they was doing, making you pay taxes. So this is when they invented the taxes, 1860s. Not to exceed the sum of $1 annually to each person so taxed, which tax when collected shall be paid to the county treasurer's hand and constitute a fund to be called the Freeman's Pauper Fund. Now I told y'all the word pauper means poor. So what they did was, now this is where it gets a little tricky, and I think this is why I had to read the black codes, because I need to understand what's going on to the deep level, from the legal level to the level, to every level. So what they saying is they stop you. So if you were captured as a POW, you were on a plantation and made to work for free as an Indian prisoner, basically, they renamed you Negro. They renamed you saying you came from Africa when you didn't, right? So before, they were allowed to whoop you into working using fear, force, and what was the other one? Fear, force. How did I forget the last one? Fraud. Fear, force, and fraud, right? So once they say, okay, we can't do that, they did the Civil War, so now they couldn't whoop you or beat you or hang you, whatever they wanted to do. They said we still got to make them go to work, so they made laws where you had to go to work, more than likely on the same place that you was getting abused on. And if you didn't go, you would go to jail and then get sent back to that place. So either way, they was always tying you back to this place. And now that you had to go to work, they made it a law. They said, okay, now that we got them going to work, we're going to have to take some taxes, take some of their money. That's where the taxes came from. So what they said and what I just read is that they made it a fund called the Freedmen's Pauper Fund, Pauper Fund, right? And in this fund, they said it was to be applied it said which shall be applied by the commissioners of the poor for the maintenance of the poor of the freemen, free Negro, and mulattoes of this state, under such regulations as may be established by the Board of County Police in the respective counties of the state. So what they did was they made the Neji, the melanated autochthonous American Indian, become POWs and called them freemen, free Negro, and mulatto, made them go to work. You know, all the laws, if you didn't go to work, then you was going to jail. So you had to go to work, and not only did you have to go to work, now they made it where they would take $1 or $2. They started taking $1 or $2 and telling the police, county police, to distribute it out to the poor people from the free Negro. But what happened is they ended up paying the police to make you go to work. Make that make sense? So they started out taking taxes to make you go to work. Now taxes have become a whole other thing. You see what they started it as? Taking our money, saying that it was going to help the pauper melanated people. But in actuality, it was funding the legal system. It was funding their court. It was funding this whole government. And now look at taxes. Off the chain. They just make taxes for everything. Now the taxes is 20-30% of your income. It didn't start like that. It didn't start like that. When you have land, you don't pay no taxes. When you indigenous, you don't pay no taxes. That's why you'll hear people talking about Indians not taxed, because we were POWs. We were the Indians not taxed. But they found a way to reclassify us and make us taxed. And to make us think that this tax money was going back towards our people, poor people from our people. And it wasn't. It was going to fund the police. You had to pay the tax to the police? Come on now. Police ain't even right nowadays. Look at Robert Brooks. Are you serious? Now imagine 150 years ago when it was legal to do that. You think they giving it? Come on now. These codes are fucking full of shit. Like what? That's why I had to read stuff like this, because yeah, you won't be governing me because I ain't ignorant. Say knowledge will forever govern ignorance. You won't be governing me. So then it says, section 7, let's see where I was. Any freeman, free Negro, or mulatto shall fail or refuse to pay any tax levied according to the provisions of the 6th section of this act. It shall be prima facie evidence of vagrancy, and it shall be the duty of the sheriff to arrest such freeman, free Negro, or mulatto, or such person refusing or neglecting to pay such tax, and proceed at once to hire for the shortest time such delinquent taxpayer to anyone who will pay the said tax with accruing costs, giving preference to the employer if there be one. What they're saying is, if you didn't pay the taxes that they made from this created Freedmen Pauper Fund, that you could go to jail and you would be fined. And with the fine, they would make you go work for somebody, kind of like slavery again, of the person who could pay your tax. Can't make this shit up. Section 8. Any person feeling himself or herself aggrieved by judgment of any justice of the peace, mayor, or alderman in cases arriving under this act may within 5 days appeal to the next term of the county court of the proper county upon giving bond and security in a sum not less than $25 nor more than $150 in condition to appear, prosecute said appeal, and abide by the judgment of the court, and said appeal shall be tried de novo in the county court, and the decision of said court shall be final. Crazy work. The last section of this, and then we're done with the black codes, and you can see why most people don't know this. Most people won't read this. Most people won't listen to this because it's just like, it's too wordy. They put a whole bunch of fluff to say some evil shit. They made it seem like it was sounding good when it was really all about evil. It says, an act to amend the penal laws of state. Section 1. No freeman, free negro, or mulatto not in the military service of the United States government and not licensed to do by the Board of Police of his or her county shall keep or carry firearms of any kind or any ammunition, dirk or bowie knife, or and on conviction thereof in county shall be punished by fine not exceeding $10 and pay the cost of such proceedings. Now all such arms of ammunition shall be forfeited by the informer, and it shall be the duty of every civil and military officer to arrest any freeman, free negro, or mulatto found with any such arms and ammunition, and cause him or her to be committed to trial in default of bail. So back in the day, if you were caught carrying ammunition or a gun or anything, whoever found you, if they were white, they could take it from you. They could seize it from you. And if they were an officer, they could lock you up. Only if you're black now. Now if you're white, you can have a gun. But if you're black, you can have a gun. Section 2. Any freeman, free negro, or mulatto committing riots, routs, affrays, trespasses, malicious mischiefs, cruel treatment to animals, seditious speech, insulting gestures, language, or acts of assault of any person, disturbance of peace, exercising the function of a minister of the gospel without a license from some regularly organized church, vending, spirituous, or intoxicating liquors, or committing any other misdemeanors, the punishment of which not specifically provided for by law, shall upon conviction thereof in the county court be fined not less than $10 and not more than $100, and may be imprisoned at the discretion of the court not exceeding 30 days. So if they didn't like what you was saying, or if you was, giving a speech, they didn't like it, you could go to jail, basically. And the last section is, if any white person shall sell, lend, or give any freeman, free negro, or mulatto any firearms, dirk, or bowie knife, or ammunition, or any spirituous or intoxicating liquor, even alcohol, such person or persons so offending upon conviction thereof the county court of his or her county shall be fined not exceeding $50 and may be imprisoned at the discretion of the court not exceeding 30 days. And that, my friends, is the Mississippi Black Codes, 1865. So we read this, and we read Despotism in America, which is a lot of heavy stuff. It's a lot of heavy stuff, so yeah, something that you, come on. It's something that you just have to, I don't know, take your time and understand, because it definitely impacts us now. It definitely impacts us now. And it has led me, like I said, to do my genealogy and just continue to know who the fuck I am. Period. Period. So, what can I say about a summary for all of this? summary would be, there's so much written about us in history, but it might not be in a form that is presented to you, which is in the form of propaganda. It's in form of these codes, in the form of these books that we probably not gonna read. We just not gonna read the secrets. But thankfully, we have the Niji out here who are reading, who are standing in the paint, who are being unapologetic and just breaking these codes. So now that I understand the black codes, I understand a lot about labor and the legal system and how it all started and what it has grown into. It's grown into something totally different now. No, but this is where it comes from. Comes from history. All right. So I'm gonna end this stream here. Thank you for watching on the replay. I know my replay viewers will watch it when you get a little, a long time. If you want to know what the Black Codes is talking about, there you have it. And that's only the one from Mississippi. I did find another book, which is a lot longer, and it goes over all of them, but I think you kind of get the picture of what they are. All right. So I'm going to hang this up. I'll probably come back on with a new live. I just want to end it here just for this topic.